So, John, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. Do you have any stories about any medical or weird anatomy stories?
So I feel that we are fishing for a story about my pilonidal cystectomy. So a pilonidal cyst is a cyst that forms at the base of your tailbone, and so you have a bit of a tail, and and I can say that. I think it was the late 90s. You guys know when the prequels came out, the Star Wars prequels? Something that was late 90s, right? Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that I was going to go with my buddy, who's a huge Star Wars fan, to go see one of the prequels. And this pilonidal cyst that I lived my whole life without knowing about got inflamed. And so what happens is you have this little tail that's whatever, let's say the size of a quarter or something like that, and it turns into something the size of like a baseball. And then, but you don't have enough skin or tissue around there to really accommodate that, so it's incredibly painful. And then you use obviously your tailbone for sitting, so it was unbearably painful, and I had no idea what it was. Anyway, so I distinctly remember it kind of flaring up that night, incidentally, at Perkins, I think afterwards, but then at Star Wars, the whatever it was, Phantom Menace, I don't know what it is, whatever the prequels was, whatever came out in like 98 or something like that. And I was in incredible pain, so I ended up kind of walking around the theater. It was really unbearable. And then I do remember shouting about it very loudly at Perkins, because I was a 17-year-old idiot, or 18. Anyway, so what the deal is then you can get them removed. And there are two ways to remove them, and this is a genuine mystery to me. You can get it removed when it's like that, which then is this major surgery, or you can pop it, let it drain, and get it removed when it's quarter-sized. And some people, I think, actually do just get it removed which seems strange to me. Anyway, have this pilonidal cystectomy. That's where they kind of remove your tail. But when they do it, they just leave it open. I don't know why that is, but there's some reason that wound needs to heal that way. So I had, instead of my tail, I believe the phrase you're looking for is my tail hole. And then my now wife, at the time girlfriend, would pack my tail hole full of gauze, because you couldn't, because that's just the way you do that. Anyway, so I had mentioned this one time to Michael, and I think that for whatever reason he wanted me to mention that again.
Wait, so is it basically now sort of a makeshift belly button on your back?
It's definitely it's much more butt than back. Okay. So I mean it's but it's no, it's this kind of weird disfigured scar. It's like a bad weld, basically. It's like this weird deformed scar tissue. It's maybe 3 inches long and maybe about 3/4 of an inch wide or something like that, of just weird scar tissue on the back there. Yeah. So, yes.
Yeah. So part of the reason this is so fascinating to me, and this is going to be way more insight into what I was like as a child than you're going to know, is I overheard on like my parents were cooking dinner and they left the TV on. It was some weird magazine show or something. Yeah. And they were talking about people with tails.
Sure. Yeah,
and I kid you not, I was like 6, and I went and I was looking at pictures of exactly what you just described, and I was fascinated. And like I genuinely tried to tell people my entire life that there were people out there who had tails.
Yeah.
And then I met you. I was like, yes, finally. I found one.
That's very funny.
And I like that at the beginning of that story you used a long medical term for it, and by the end you were calling it your tail.
Tail hole.
Tail hole. That's true.
Yeah.
I do want to ask how you lived. You said you didn't know it was there.
Mm-hmm. So I call it a tail and tail hole because those are funny terms.
Yeah.
what can happen is this is it's a pilonidal cyst, and my brother actually had one as well. His also got inflamed, and he also had to have his removed. So that is kind of a fluke. But I don't know what percentage of people get them, but it is a thing that happens. And then I think the cyst itself, just like any other cyst, I think can vary in size. So I think there's two things going on there. One is it may just not have been protuberance for all of that time. And then the second thing is how little time I spend looking at my own butt.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yep.
Yeah, and I guess I can understand the variance in size thing because the people on this whatever it was Inside Edition, they looked like humans with French bulldog tails, and I was like.
And yes, sorry to disappoint. That is not what I had.
Oh.
So, but I think we can keep that in our minds.
Yeah, I will always picture you with a French bulldog tail, John.
Exactly,
that is
exactly. But that is unfortunately not what this was. Yeah.
I don't think I can top that.
I was trying to think of, and we certainly don't need to leave this in here. I was trying to think of other stories, and I'm sad to say that most of my stories involve someone that I think I would be mostly making fun of.
I was thinking about that too.
Most of my stories involve some very strange person that I know. So one of my buddies, Nate, actually the guy that I was trying to prank in the bathroom, he has what he calls my made-up Oshkosh people, because I've known some really weird people, and they are very funny stories, but obviously they're kind of offensive to the people, but it is to the point where Nate just doesn't believe. He's like, there's no way you've met this many bonkers people in your life. Like, no, these are all true stories. So anyway, I keep coming back to kind of my normal quiver of stories involve usually some completely insane person that I was friends with or knew from Perkins or whatever. So, and that probably wouldn't be appropriate. So
I have quite a few of those myself. I was trying to weed through.
Yeah,
if I could. Yeah. Nope.
And yeah, it is funny. I mean, I think that I do tell a lot of stories. I like storytelling. I think it's fun, and I just nothing's coming to me. So. Yeah, so I don't know that I have anything else there. How about you, Muffy?
You got any stories?
I have to think and process them.
I remember the first time you told me the running into the pole story and the knocking off the dresser story. It was when we were both working in a warehouse that used a lot of boxes, and every day you would cut yourself on the boxes. And I turned around to you and said, are you clumsy or are you accident prone? And you're like, I'm not clumsy and I'm not accident prone. And then you proceeded to tell me a story about how you ran into a pole and knocked a dresser handle off with your head. And I was like, this isn't convincing me of either of those things.
I'm not clumsy. Maybe I'm accident prone. There was another time. You have something to say?
I know I was going to ask if there were any quick topics, so we could do a twofer. Were there any quick topics that were actually theology related, so that this wasn't entirely...
Well, this one might be sort of theology.
Okay.
No, not even at all. But, so we were at an ice rink, skating, and my family and a group of other people from our school, and we decided to play sharks and minnows on ice skates, and I, as a middle child, was of course appointed as shark.
Why don't you tell the people at home what sharks and minnows is?
Sharks and minnows is basically tag, and the shark is it, and you have to tag as many people from one line to another, like in between those, and every time they try to cross, and whenever you tag them, they become a shark with you, and so they become a tagger with you, and then the last person standing wins. So
If anyone at home has any idea what this game is by that explanation, congratulations.
Do you actually not know what it is?
Oh, I have no idea. Where did the lines come from?
Okay, so you have two like baselines. So let's just say an end zone or something.
Oh, okay.
Let's just say there's a line.
Yep.
There's two lines.
Yep.
One at one end, one on the other.
Got it.
You start on one. The shark says go.
Yep.
And then you try to run and dodge them and stay within the boundaries.
Totally got it.
And without getting tagged.
Got it. Sorry. Thank you.
Yep. And then so we were ice skating. I think it might have just honestly been.
Well, that would be hard on ice skates.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, got it.
Usually played in a swimming pool.
Oh, sharks and minnows. Got it. Okay.
And so I think it might have just been me and my younger brother playing. Honestly, I was just like, "Yo, let's play sharks and minnows." Like, what are we gonna do as teenagers or tweens or whatever? So I was trying to tag him, and we're trying to dodge each other on skates, and we're not like advanced skaters by any means. So then I stretched too far. I like leaned over too far to try to tag him, spun, feet went in the air, chin went down first onto the ice. It was just like, ow.
Yeah.
That hurt a lot. I tapped my chin, bleeding a little bit, whatever. Keep skating. And then lady was looking at me, and like then I realized that a lot of people are looking at me. I'm like, why is everybody looking at me? And then somebody comes up to me and they're like taking me off the ice to like check this out. It's like, what? And then so I think my dad was there with me and a couple of my brothers, and my mom was just getting there. So my mom didn't get to ice skate because then somebody was looking at my chin. They're like, "Yeah, you're gonna need stitches." So then mom's walking in and is like, "Oh, all right, gonna take you in, I guess." Another trip, and yeah. So I don't remember how many stitches. It's just a few in my chin. So.
And you have two brothers?
Three
brothers. Does your mom call all four of you Muffler? Or how does that work?
Nobody calls us Muffler within our family.
Okay, that makes sense because you guys all have the same last name. Yeah, that one.
Because then we could assume that it's my dad.
Oh, sure.
Or just any of us.
Yeah, got it.
So I was down visiting them last week, and I had to physically restrain myself because they opened the garage door, and I kid you not, front and center in the garage, on top of a pile of everything else, was a muffler. And I was like, what do I do? What do I do in this situation? These people are named Muffler, and there's a car muffler right there, just sitting there.
That's funny.
So yeah, when I was there, I was calling you Muffler, and I realized, like, this is weird.
Yeah.
Everyone at this table is a muffler.
That's weird.
This is strange.
It was really exhausting for you, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Should have gotten a picture with it. Taken one of them.
Oh, yeah.
What the heck?
I do feel like every time I see a automotive shop that says like there's one, Valley Brake and Muffler, I was like, I'm gonna take a picture of this random automotive shop just to send it to you.
Or we were in like Fleet Farm the other day, and there's an aisle that just like says Muffler on it. And so he took a picture of me below it. So there's this other story
That's fantastic. That's
where my younger brother and I were biking around the block before dinner. Our mom calls out the door. It's time for dinner. And so we're like, one more lap. Let's do one quick. We did one, and then he wanted to do one more, and I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm going to go in and get ready. So he goes on his own, And then, so these bikes, back in the day, they have metal pedals. They're not just those plastic. So they can take some skin off. And he was probably just, showing off like a youngster. And his foot must have slipped. And he caught his, like, Achilles, basically.
Oh, yeah.
And tore it open. Ooh. And he was screaming, and our neighbor fireman carried him to our house, and he saw his own bones, so then he was starting to go into shock. And then, yeah, he had he had to get like 3 or 4 stitches on the inside, and then 20 some on the outside.
Oh, holy smokes! Yeah,
and so that's another accident story.
Jeez.
Cheers to Andrew.
I feel like you and your siblings did much more, like,
Fun?
I was gonna say violent, stupid things. Like me and my siblings, the stupid things we did was we tried to see how many of us we could fit in the dryer at the same time, which was fun. And then 10 years later, when my mom found out, it was less fun. We were all trying to climb in the dryer at the same time. I'm trying to steer away from, because now I'm thinking of stories about injuring myself.
Sure.
And I'm trying to think of other stories. We
have a home video where my 2 older brothers and I are like walking around the house naked, and one of my brothers shoves me into the wall, and I start whining about it.
Great story.
Classic. Classic early 2000s.
Have I told you the story about my wife and my bachelorette party that we had? Did we talk about that?
This sounds familiar, but I don't remember the story.
So this is kind of a absurd series of events, but this truly happened. I think I'm sure there's been some embellishment over the years, but the big blocks for sure actually happened. So we decided to have a combined bachelorette party. There's a group of, like we were talking about earlier, there's a group of like 5 or so of us that would get together every weekend, and we would watch movies or whatever. We'd play cards. Actually, we were big cribbage players. And that group, we decided that, because we were all friends, we decided we'd have a bachelor and bachelorette party the week before we got married, or maybe I think it was the week before we got married, that Saturday. And at the time, we were all I think I was in my mid-20s, or Rachel was in her early 20s. And so we decided to go out to a bar, and we jokingly said, well, let's not go to what was at the time, I believe it was called the 626 Club. We said, let's not go to the 626 Club because we don't want there to be any stabbings, because the 626 Club had a stabbing. So we go to, I'm going to forget what the name of it is now, but it was something beach club or something like that. I can't remember what it was. I'm sorry for all the Oshkosh townies who just are distraught that I've forgotten the name of this dumb bar. But anyway, so we go to that bar, and we have a fine time. It's fine, whatever. We're all, low key, whatever. And then as we're leaving, a guy got stabbed. And so it was the first time I'd ever seen a stabbing in real life. So, it's a hole in the guy's stomach and blood is just shooting out of it. It's horrifying. And then the girlfriend of the guy who did the stabbing was like, they're just playing. They're just they're just playing. She kept saying they're just playing. I was like, that is not accurate. That is not a true assessment of what's going on. So then, and this is the part that I swear did happen, but I think I may have added some. So I will tell you the way I remember it. There's a chance I might be adding a person or two in here. But this is the sequence as I remember it. First thing that someone came up and said, I'm an EMT. He needs to lay down. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know. Whatever. This was the advice. So he needs to lay down. So the guy was going in shock. I mean, this was just watching it. I was kind of in shock because I had never seen anything like that before. It was terrifying. And then the next guy comes up, and I believe he said, "I'm an Army EMT. He needs to lay down." This would be maybe the one I add, but I'm pretty sure this is real. Then a guy came up, "I'm a Marine EMT. He definitely needs to lay down." And then it finally ended. That's the only one that I think I might have added in. And then finally, there was someone that said, "Well, I'm a nurse. He needs to lay down." It was just very funny. It was this chain of people, kind of leapfrogging credentials, all saying the same thing, which is that he needed to lay down. So anyway, so he laid down. And then I am, at this point, I'm in my, whatever, I'm going to make a difference phase. So I'm like, well, we need to stick around to tell the police what happened. So I will acknowledge I was slightly intoxicated at the time. I was, everything was legal and above board. And my friend pointed out that I don't think the cops want 20 idiots telling them what happened when it's pretty obvious what happened. The guy running down the street with a knife is probably just stabbed this guy who's bleeding out of his stomach. So, okay, fair enough. So we kind of, I understood where he was going with that. I was like, oh, good point. Okay, so it was a good thing we didn't. So anyway, so that was funny, right? So we said, oh, we don't want to see a stabbing out of nowhere. I mean, that wasn't like something we joked about all the time. And then there was an actual stabbing. Never seen that before. They just playing thing, that was funny, and then the succession of credential dropping, that was all very funny. And then we go home. That guy that did the stabbing ended up being in like a 10-hour standoff with the cops down on CP Street, and then he finally gave himself up. It was just like the weirdest series of events. Anyway, so that was our Bachelorette Party. That was a pretty good story.
What a memory.
It was a beautiful time.
I mean, the only story I have about stabbings in that general region is when I was in high school. Yep. I had some friends they would always go do whatever questionable things, as everyone knows in high school, and these one guy I knew. He was a kind of a bigger guy. Mm-hmm. He was just walking down Main Street, and this guy pulls a knife on him.
Oh, crazy!
And like holds it to his throat, and says, "Give me your wallet."
So, and I should point out here for listeners at home. Sorry, that's a line from a podcast that I think is very funny. So that's why I keep saying that. Stranger violent crime in Oshkosh has got to be like one a year at the most. I mean, it does not happen. It is very, very rare. Sorry.
Nope. Typical crime here is vandalism at worst.
right.
Like so, but this kind of epitomizes that.
Yeah.
The guy pulls the knife, says, "Give me your wallet." This guy who's like he's 16 at best turns around, and looks at him, and says, "Really?" And they stare at each other for like 10 seconds. The guy goes, "Never mind." Puts the knife away and then just keeps walking. It's like, no, he's not actually going to stab you. It's and called my bluff. So
that's pretty funny. Yeah, that's good. Do you have any stabbing stories or near stabbing stories?
When he's from by Milwaukee, he's got to.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I had a coworker. This might be TMI, but I don't know. I had a coworker back at home, and he was telling me how he had a coworker at his previous job who, like, was in prison because he stabbed somebody.
Sure.
And he said this guy, in great detail, and his shifts are like 14 hours. This coworker of his that stabbed somebody described in great detail of how it felt to stab somebody.
That's weird.
Which is pretty weird. Yeah. But like the main part that he remembered and he told me was that he said it felt like where it's like it goes through.
Oh, that's the horrible. It's terrible.
I might edit that out. Yeah. Try to keep it rated G.
So for those at home, post-edit, Muffler just described the most disgusting thing I think I've ever heard. So
very graphic. We're not going to subject you to that.